What's up, y'all? Welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about refurbished enclosures. So if you watched my very first video, there was 4 major types of enclosures that I talked about. There's repurposed, refurbished, retail, and reasonable customs or rustums. And so today we're going to highlight refurbished enclosures. We're going to go over the cost, the ease of execution, and what the best uses are. Also later in the video, I'm going to go ahead and go and see currently right now if I went on Craigslist, Facebook, somewhere local and look and see what kind of refurbished stuff that I could get my hands on currently today. So I think that'll be pretty fun. So stick around and let's get started on this next level enrichment. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and start this video by highlighting this enclosure. I'm going to stay out of the frame because I need to be able to get you to be able to see it all, sorry. So this is a 6 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot enclosure. It boasts about, I don't know, I'd say a 1/4 inch thick glass panels for full view. Has custom built-in actual lighting and then ventilation circle cut out over there. What does refurbished mean? Okay, so let's get into that for half a second. What that means is there's all kinds of enclosures when you get on side of Craigslist or Facebook and that are, run down. Somebody used them for many years. It could be an aquarium with a broken seal. It could be a metal rusted cage that just needs to be sanded or and then repainted. Or it can be a wood enclosure that has had, some spots maybe are waterlogged and you have to just replace some of it, or sometimes you just sand it, paint it, etc., right? You can get these enclosures that were well built. I mean, they have strong, sturdy bones. This is like a nice hard pine wood, but they weren't taken care of very well. So what happens is the savings get passed on to you, right? So I got this for 50 bucks about 3 years ago. When I got it, the glass, you couldn't even see through it because the water stains were so bad. The inside, like the whole bottom, was just filthy from like whatever animal was in there. They had let it pee on maybe paper towels or something and it soaked through. And then the whole top was nicked and bruised and cut and whatever you want to call it with wood. And so what I had to do, right, I got it for 50 bucks though, solid bones, right? It's very sturdy. In fact, you can see I have another enclosure sitting on top of it right now, right? So it's very strong and sturdy. So what I did was I took it in, I sanded everything down with a nice medium grit sandpaper, okay? Then I sanitized everything, and then I went back through with sandpaper anywhere that I felt that needed a little bit more love, and then on the outside I also sanded it. So if you can tell, this is black matte finish. All I did was do 3 coats of paint on the outside to make sure that all the blemishes were gone. So every time you do a coat of paint, it'll fill in the little cracks and blemishes, and eventually after the 3rd, 4th coating sometimes, it'll get nice and smooth and become this nice smooth black finish, okay? Had a little bit of paint left over, so if you actually see the background, how nice and smooth that brown is, that's what it was supposed to look like, but the bottom was nothing like that. So with my paint roller, I just got a little fun with it, and I kind of made little black blotches all over to make it kind of look like a snake's skin, just a little touch. Then here, vinegar, right? So vinegar is the thing to get rid of water spots. So I soaked these in some vinegar, and then I got an aquarium scraper. I just scraped the glass clean to the point where it's pretty good. I mean, there's small little, blemishes on it, but for the most part, very solid. And then down here, just sanitized, let's see, 3 portions water, 1 portion bleach. Sanitized it a few times, let it air out, obviously. And then there you go. I have a nice solid enclosure for 50 bucks. I probably put another 50 within paint and sandpaper and like a roller, right? And then now you have this, a 6 foot by 4 foot by 3 foot enclosure that's been, wired for light. I might do a better cage than this, but it's good for now. And yeah, what's nice is you have to think these glass panes right here. If you went out and try to find 1/4 inch thick glass panes at this size for give yourself the full view, I don't even have locks on this enclosure. The glass is so heavy and so thick that I don't even have to worry about it, okay? Which gives me a nice field of view, and I can even kind of show you here. Watch this. So you can just hear the weight of that glass, right? So if you can see down here, it's basically this little coat hanger was epoxied on there, and I tried to get it off, but I'll give the guy credit, whoever made this, they know epoxy very well, and I was afraid I'm going to mess up the glass, so this is my little handle. It's a coat hanger, so a little janky, but what are you going to do? It was 50 bucks, right? So But if, you've seen some footage, I have some other footage of my snake. He fully is able to stretch out. I have him a log. He likes to be under his bowl. He's currently under his bowl right now, if you can see him poking his little head out right there. So that's how he microclimates. He goes over there for the cool side, over here for the warm side in his little log. Okay, but point being is you can go on Craigslist and Facebook and whatever else you have that's a local celery, and you can find these incredible deals on these enclosures that were well used, and you just need to put a little sweat equity into them, and all of a sudden you have an enclosure that would cost you hundreds and hundreds of dollars for pennies really, and just some sweat DIY, do it yourself. Okay, so like I said, later in this video I'm going to go on Craigslist and we're going to look and see what I could currently get right now, and you'll be shocked in the value you could get if you really stretch yourself and kind of look and are willing to apply yourself for a little DIY. Okay, all right, y'all. So let's go over 3 components: the cost, the ease of execution, and the best use for refurbished enclosures. On the spectrum of cheap, moderately priced, and expensive, they pretty much sit at the cheap end of the spectrum, and that's kind of the charm of a refurbished enclosure. The worse off they are when you find them online to buy or from someone you know, the better deal you're going to get. But you'll have to put more DIY into it. But that's where they really shine. You get your best dollar per square foot of enclosure for a refurbished enclosure that needs a lot of DIY. Okay. Of course, you can find some refurbished enclosures that don't need much love, but at that spectrum, you're going to pay up on it because there's less that you'll have to do. Okay. Ease of execution, well, that just is what it is. It comes down to easy, moderate, and advanced. Well, it can be easy if you need very little, or it can be moderate. It could be advanced if it's really banged up and you have a lot of work you need to do. Overall, though, the more work you put into it, the more value you're going to get out of it. I've done a lot of refurbished enclosures, and 99% of them are easy, though. And that's why I do suggest them for anyone that's on a budget looking for something to get the most out of their enclosure. Okay? As I go over these 2 enclosures, you'll see I got them for pretty cheap with very little DIY I had to put into them. So my other tip to you is be patient with refurbished enclosures, especially if you live somewhere that doesn't have a lot of, you're more rural, if you will. If you're in a bigger city, you probably have faster and better luck at finding a decent refurbished enclosure. But give yourself some time if you can. That's where they're going to really shine. And then that's also where you can kind of barter with people and get that price really down on these enclosures. However, I also think that they're on the con sides of it a little bit difficult, in the sense that if you have a specific type of animal that needs a specific type of enclosure, it's going to be very hard for you to be able to find what you need unless you get really lucky. So they shine more if you have an animal that can live in like a broad spectrum of different types of enclosures. For instance, like a ball python. Ball python can be in a glass enclosure, can be in a wood enclosure, it can be in an aluminum enclosure. It just needs 4 walls and a viewing panel essentially. So you can get a lot more variety for something like a ball python. But then you change to say like a chameleon, for instance, where they have to have something that can hold in moisture and needs to be a little more arboreal. A little harder to find something in the refurbished category. So that's why there is 4 different types of enclosures that we're going to talk about, because this may not be the best option for you, but depending on the animal, it could be the option when you're looking to have value. So as I said, I was going to go online and kind of see what kind of enclosures are in my area, just to give people an idea of what's out there, what you can do, what you can get, how much it would cost. Just show you how much value you can get out of a refurbished enclosure. So first I'm going to start with something real quick though, on a side note. First picture you're going to see here, now you're like, why am I staring at a shower? Well, that's because if you look at the glass, it's 3-piece corner. Now imagine instead of the tile, you have wood. That's one heck of an enclosure that you can make with this glass shower wall here. And I'm telling you right now, I've been seeing these more and more and more online, where people maybe do custom jobs or something and end up getting the wrong size of glass. This one here is actually posted for $100. All 3 of those panels of glass with the glass door already, $100. So stay tuned to future builds, because I'm 99.9% sure that I'm going to purchase a 3-piece glass set like this and build a full view enclosure that's massive. So just a side note. But anyhow, that is obviously not a refurbished enclosure. Let's look at the first one here. All right, so this one here, he wants $100. Not too bad of a deal, seeing how you have a overhead light already, and pretty much just looks like the floor is kind of messed up. So just a quick sand inside, sand and sanitation. The windows still look like they're in good shape, and mostly the outside does too. maybe a quick paint job if you don't like the color. But for $100, that's a dual view 6 foot by 3 foot by 2 foot enclosure with a built-in lamp. You know, a little TLC on that, paint, sandpaper, sanitation, for the most part, not too bad. I mean, you have a pretty nice and big enclosure right there, right? Moving forward, let's see. We're gonna go to the next one. So this guy wants $40 for this. It's like 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. Not too bad though. Also pretty full view. Again, it looks like it needs, you know, maybe some sanitation inside. Probably not sanding, but you know, you can clean that up for the most part. Don't need too much more. You know, a little DIY, but it's pretty cheap, probably because the person just wants to get rid of it. Looks like it has some remnants of the last animal in there, but that can be easily cleaned and fixed for $40. Not bad, right? Imagine trying to build that yourself. It's going to be more than that. So another great option here. Moving forward, this is another one. So this is just a glass aquarium, but it's pretty massive. I think he said on there it was, I want to say 200 gallons. Seams probably, the water seams are probably burst, so that means that it won't hold water, but those could be replaced if you really wanted to. Otherwise, I mean, it comes with that cork bark inside. That cork bark inside alone is probably like 100, $150 or something ridiculous, maybe even more. And I think they wanted 200 for this whole thing, which I'm sure you can negotiate on that. Plus, it looks like there's other pieces of wood in there and stuff like that. So probably with just the wood inside, you're getting an incredible deal, let alone, you know, that's got to be at least a 6 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot enclosure of pure glass. And here's another great thing about that. You might even be able to talk them down on the price and then just slice the seals on all the glass and remove the plastic on the top and the bottom. And now you got massive glass panes if you wanted to create a big enclosure. And that's going to save you if you just went to the store and bought, you know, 6 foot by 3 foot glass panes. It'd be a couple $100 probably a pane, you know, depending on where you go and how thick you get it. But for the most part, you could just, it's not that hard to break the seals off of an aquarium. And in fact, in a future video, I could show people how to do that too. They're held together basically just by the plastic on the top and the bottom, and then with acrylic or caulk in the corners, you know, to make it waterproof. So yeah, I think he only wanted $200 for this, which maybe even can get him talked down possibly, but nonetheless, I think even for 200, this was a great steal of a deal. A couple more here. This guy, he's asking a bit much. It's only because it's only 6 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot, and he's trying to get 200. But it was up for 10 weeks. That's the only reason I put it on here. And odds are you could easily get him down on that price because no one's going to buy it for $200. So the reason I'm showcasing this is because I want people to see there's negotiation. Look how long a post's been up. This one's been up for 10 weeks, still there. No way he's going to get that. So you can easily, and it looks like it's wired for electricity. I think it opens from the top if I remember from the other picture, but it's a nice full view enclosure. Be great for maybe a mid-sized lizard or a snake even, like a ball python or a corn snake or something. Probably it doesn't look like it needs much work, to be honest with you. It looks like it's pretty good condition depending on the flooring of the wood inside, how it's been taken care of. So this is one that you could probably get just because it's been on the market for a while. If you wanted to offer them a little less, you could probably get this for even cheaper, maybe $100. And I still think that's a pretty darn good enclosure for $100. Maybe even cheaper, who knows? Let's see, second to last one here. So I really liked this one. So the last two, I kind of like the most. I think there's a lot of value you're about to see in these ones. So on this second to last one, this one's 6 foot by 2 foot by 6 foot again, I think. Or no, 6 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot, sorry. And so that's about as big as the snake enclosure I showed you earlier. Again, it's a nice full view. Now this one has some problems though. He wants $300, which he's dreaming. Never going to get $300 for this because you can clearly see the bottom metal railing. It looks like it has some chips. Possibly that's acrylic, I'm sure, and it looks like the acrylic's cracked. That's why you see the black duct tape. Some of the fascia's peeling off on the front of it, and it definitely looks like it needs to be at least sanded on the inside and sanitized. So there's some DIY, but this is where you can get some value. This also has been up for 10 weeks and needs a lot of work. I can guarantee you that I could eventually get this for $50 if I wanted to, and then easily, but it's going to need some DIY like the enclosure I showed you earlier. But you put the DIY in, and you're going to have yourself, you know, $500 enclosure by the time you're done fixing it all up for $50 plus some DIY, maybe another $50 out of pocket for sandpaper, paint, whatever you want to do to it, maybe another piece of acrylic to replace that. So I thought this was a great deal of an enclosure, as long as, all he had was the front picture, so as long as the top and the back's not all messed up, but it looks like the wood's in solid condition from what I can see. That leads me to the last one, the greatest deal that I found. This, my bad mamma jamma, is a 6 foot by 3 foot by 6 foot enclosure, walk-in enclosure for iguanas and large lizards. That's exactly what they built it for. It says in the listing that it was built for an iguana. They no longer have, and all they wanted it was $300 for this. Now, they're not going to get $300 for this. They've had this up also for 10 weeks. And I think it's just kind of rare that somebody wants to buy a 6 foot by 6 foot by 3 foot enclosure and put that inside their house or outside. So I think this is a great deal in a sense that I'm almost certain you can get this for $100 or less. They probably just want out of their house by now. And even for $100, all the wood and stuff, you would pay more than that just for that, let alone putting it all together. At this level, they even kind of got some nice fascia boards on the front to kind of deck it out. You might need to replace the screen. I can't tell, it looks a little bit loose, but overall, yeah, you replace the screen, do 2-3 coats of undercoat white paint, and then on top of that, make it any coat you want, and you won't even see the fact that it's MDF, and all the wood grain will be gone. It just makes a nice and smooth paint coating. And you could probably even make this, probably have to put a roof on it, but you might even be able to keep that outside or in your garage. Or you could just leave it how it is and put it inside your house. I mean, it's not that bad. So a little bit of DIY, but this one here for $100, if you have a large iguana or animal, this would definitely be a great deal. And again, this one was actually on Facebook, as you can tell. So with that said, you can see lots of value, all different types of enclosures. There's an aquarium, different various size wood enclosures. And there was others. There was some that had like bird racks and metal cages, but none of them were really in bad condition. People kind of wanted top dollar for them, so I wasn't able to find a refurbishable one. But they do exist. You just have to be patient and keep looking around. And this was just simply a quick search for enclosures on Craigslist and Facebook. I didn't go anywhere else, and I didn't try like animal cage or reptile cage or anything like that. I just typed in the word enclosure, and these are the ones that popped up. So definitely encourage everyone to look into these as an option if you're deciding what kind of enclosure you want. Like I said, we'll be talking about retail enclosures, reasonable custom enclosures, and repurposed enclosures. And those may be the better fit because the better value for your area. But first, I always like to look online when I get a new animal and see what's out there already. And maybe I can just refurbish it and get a great value. But if I can't, like I said, we'll look into the other 3 options. All right, so hopefully that sheds some light on refurbished enclosures for you. I will address the elephant in the room. As you can see, I have all this other stuff around all my enclosures. Well, I'm in my office right now, and I also sell items on eBay. So this is all my shipping supplies down here, if you're wondering. There's my computer, and when I'm watching my computer, I look over, there's my ball python and my rhino iguana. So I have animals all over my house. You're going to see that if you keep watching this channel. But this is my very first refurbished enclosure, which happens to be in my office. Pretty cool. So anyhow, again, I hope I shed some light on the value that you can get out of refurbished enclosures. I can't stress it enough. Depending on the animal that you got, it's the way to go, depending on if you can find something, right? But always start there. Look online, see if there's anything refurbished that you can find. And if you can't, then like I said, there's 4 different types of enclosures: repurposed, retail, and reasonably customizable ones that we can also go over. And those may be the better option for you. So keep watching and look for those videos to pop up. Otherwise, I guess I'll see you next time. Hey, real quick, I wanted to give you a quick sneak peek of something before you go. Check it out. Ready? Oh, it's so beautiful.